Hi, everybody. Riv Kalea here with another podcast from the Darkness to Radiance series. I am so glad everyone is here with us today. And again, I want to remind everybody I am not a doctor or a therapist. Everything that I talk about is from my own experiences or the experiences of my trusted friends. And I have a wonderful guest with me today, Jorjia, and she wanted to come on and talk a little bit about her experiences going forward. And I'm really excited to jump right in. So, welcome, Jorjia. How are you?
Hi, thank you. I'm so good. I'm good. Happy to be here.
Yay.
Absolutely. I think what you're doing here is amazing. So I'm excited to be part of it.
Thank you so much. I know, I'm trying to the collective is put together so that people have a safe space to come and talk and share and grow on their journey, whether it's trauma, whether it's entrepreneur, whether it's both, we want to be here as a collective to support everybody. So thank you. Um, so I know I've talked to you a little bit when we were off. So now we're on. Can you share a little bit about your experiences, maybe with a little bit of trauma and how it influenced you with your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I dealt with childhood sexual abuse in when I was a kid, and then kind of throughout my teenage years and early adult years, kept perpetuating that in relationships that I would find, someone to quote unquote save me that was much older, that understood,
Trauma
and
bonding with them, it sounds.
right. And trying to, there was some major abandonment that I felt during the process, as a child and, young teenager. And so I would perpetuate that with toxic relationships over and over, which I didn't realize at the time, of course. I was just like, why does this keep happening to me? It must be what I deserve. So it was later that I kind of realized like I was continuing to seek these things out because I felt like it was what I deserved or, whatever it was. Um, but it also wasn't even until recently that I realized like what a big part trauma played in my reason for becoming a entrepreneur, wanting to have that control back and having experienced some things in workplaces as well with like sexual harassment and things like that, where I was just at the point where it's like, I need to take control of this. And I also didn't feel like I was giving back as much as I could in a, 9 to 5 workplace.
Right.
So that's definitely something that I wanted to move into, expanding my horizons of serving other people.
That's amazing. It sounds like you've done a lot of work on yourself,
Yeah.
a lot of healing, and it sounds like, when you were a child, obviously you don't have those coping skills or even the words to explain what was going on. So the fact that, now that you're an adult, you can look back and see that, I think says a lot about you and how far you've come in your healing.
Thank you. It's been a journey.
Yeah. A lot of people I've talked to, and I say that a lot, that it's a healing journey. And I know for me personally, I don't think anyone is ever 100% healed, because I think there's always room for improvement no matter where you are. So that's just how I look at things for me. So
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
kind of in what ways do you think the trauma experience shaped your approach? So you touched on it a little bit, like you learned about it. So
Yeah, I think that in the center of who I am, my soul, I have always wanted to serve other people and I've always wanted to make a difference in the world. And through the trauma, I kind of detached from that and detached from who I was because it didn't feel safe
right,
to be in like my feminine caring energy, but it also didn't feel safe to give other people love because it had been used against me. And So like going through my healing journey, for so long, I hated the world. I hated God. I hated the church. I hated like, men as a whole. And I was just so full of this like rage and this hate. And that's how I coped and moved forward in life. So going through the healing journey and therapy and all of that, I was able to come back to the place of like wanting to give my love to people and knowing that other people have gone through the same things that I've gone through. So like this is kind of a way that I can be there for other people and also help them to maybe not go through the hate phase for quite as long. And so like the end goal, right now I've done different businesses and things like that, but the end goal is to have a equine therapy ranch
Oh,
where I help survivors of trauma and kids in the foster care system, as well as like vets and things like that with equine therapy, because they're really good to help with all of those things. And
right.
I love horses. So,
That's amazing. So I was going to ask you a little bit about that, but I want to, before I get there, because I want to build up to it. So it sounds like you've been talking about a little bit about the skills that you've kind of amassed on this journey. Can you talk a little bit about the skills and how that's going to translate into this equine? Did I say that
yeah,
correctly? Okay.
equine, I don't know, but it's one of the two. Yeah, with horses.
Okay. So expand on that.
Yeah, skills. So I've learned a lot about breathing and regulating my nervous system. There's a lot of things that come up as triggers from trauma, different smells, different words, different, touches, anything can, throw me. Not so much now because of the work that I've done, but like in the past, I would have panic attacks almost out of nowhere and feel like
Right.
a crazy person. So through therapy, and a lot of different like reading and things like that, I've learned breathing techniques. I do a lot of journaling, which I feel like is really good to get the thoughts out of my head and kind of
Yeah.
see like where are we at. And that's been helpful in my entrepreneur journey because as an entrepreneur, your thoughts are bouncing all over the place and you're wearing a million different hats. So the
Exactly.
journaling has been helpful there. Um, and I've also learned to have like grace for myself, and that pours into having grace for other people. And I feel like that's been a huge skill in my business, as well as not taking things personally. If somebody doesn't answer my call or something like that, like it doesn't mean that they hate me or they're mad at me.
Exactly.
So that's been a huge skill as well, especially with things like cold calling or trying to set appointments, that kind of thing. It's not personal. It's not about me.
So you mentioned that working with horses is a really good therapy. So tell me a little bit about that. I know I have a friend who used to ride horses, so she would tell me, but it was different. Like she was just going and riding and doing like shows and stuff. So I know that it was very therapeutic for her just to be near horses. I don't know a lot about horses. So what do they do for people?
Well, chemically, they release a chemical, and there's also a chemical in their feces that this when you smell it when you're around it, it actually aids in the healing of depression.
Wow,
So
I did not
chemically,
know
they're really
that.
beneficial. Yeah, it's really cool. But also, they're so smart, and you can, if you're open to it, really connect with them. Like you would a dog or any other like furry, fluffy animal. Um, they can sense where you're at, how you're feeling emotionally,
Okay.
and they'll act differently according to that. And so I think that it's really beneficial for trauma survivors, especially who may not be connected to themselves and how they're feeling,
Okay.
to be around the horses because they can connect to that horse, but then they can also see how the horse is behaving to maybe look internal as to like, what am I feeling that the horse is
See.
feeling, you know?
It's because the horse would kind of play off of their emotions, and so that might be what they need to realize that, hey, something has triggered them.
Right. And by learning, okay, when the ears are facing this way or that way, that's how they're feeling, they can also start to realize like, oh, okay, so when my heart starts beating like this, or when I feel my face flush, or, whatever, like that means I'm feeling X, Y, and Z. So it's like helping with, you're connecting with something else that's always going to be there, that's always going to trust you, but you're also connecting with yourself in the process.
Wow, that's fascinating. I would love to hear more about that. Like I said, I've talked to my friend about horses, but not to that level. And I've seen horses, and I've ridden them, sporadically when I was younger, and they're just these big animals, so they seem intimidating to me. But it sounds like they're pretty gentle, and can definitely be, empathic to what's going on with their rider, or even the people that are associating with them, grooming them, or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can really connect on like I feel like it's a soul level.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So that kind of, I was going to ask you if you had found any unique opportunities or niches in the business world. And I mean, this is the first that I've kind of heard about that. So what made you go? Were horses like integral in your journey, or you've just always liked them? How did you find? I mean, that's a huge niche right there.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I have loved horses since I was little. When I was like 2 years old, I wanted a pink horse and carried that dream on until I realized that, like, to get a pink horse, you would have to dye a white horse pink, and that's maybe not so healthy for them. But still always wanted a horse. Finally got one when I was like 15.
Okay.
I was dealing with a lot of suicidal thoughts and things like that, and I was able to get a horse, which was able to help me a lot. And I've ridden on and off throughout my whole childhood and everything, and it was never. I didn't participate in equine therapy as like a client, but I noticed the difference that it made in me,
Right.
and like the ability, like I felt free when I was around them, when I was riding, when I was mucking out stalls, whatever. It was like that. I felt connected. I felt free. I didn't feel like I was overwhelmed by all the outside things or things that were happening to me. And so um then when I was younger, I wanted to have like a horse ranch where people would come and stay in like cottages and pay me to do that kind of thing, and whatever. But it's evolved into, after working in a drug and alcohol treatment center. I'm in recovery from drugs and alcohol myself.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of moved into like, I want to do something that's going to give back. But I also want to do it in a way that doesn't have to be necessarily funded by other people. I want to be able to fund it myself.
Okay.
So, yeah, so then I've kind of moved into like, that's the end goal. I'm doing what I'm doing now to get there. But niche wise, I think that that's definitely the end goal. We're moving in that direction. And I feel like the connections I'm making now are helping me to move closer to that.
So talk a little bit about what you're doing now then to get
I
in.
have, yeah, I have a digital marketing agency where we haven't really niche down there as far as like specific business models,
Mhm.
but we're working with businesses that have integrity, that are wanting to make a difference in the community. That's pretty much as far down as we've niched right now.
Okay.
And then moving into coaching for women in sobriety who are starting businesses to kind of help bridge the gap, and kind of bring things in where we can apply the principles of the 12 steps into business and how they like go together. Because a
Okay.
lot of people in sobriety warn people off of sales and things like that because it could be dangerous.
Right.
The ebb and flow of cash and things like that. But I don't think that it's necessarily dangerous if we go into it with the right attitudes.
Well, and again, so you're going to teach them the skills because you have now have all of these skills built up in your toolbox.
Yeah,
So I love that how you framed that other people, it could be dangerous if it's not presented in the right way.
yeah.
So, what types of skills can you show them? If you can tell me one or two, maybe. Where.
I think it's really important, in my opinion, and everything that I've learned so far. Honesty is super important in business. And it's also one of the biggest principles in the 12-step program that I'm part of. And I've been in situations in like phone rooms and things like that where like they want you to lie to the people you're talking to. And I had to quit those jobs because I can't. Like there's really not a gray area for me. And I'm not willing to find one and take the chance of, relapsing or something.
Right.
So I think honesty is a big skill, and realizing like you can be honest in business, you can be honest in sales, you can create relationships. Like the days of being the old, car salesman out there telling you whatever you want to hear are over. Nobody
Right.
wants that anymore.
No.
So, and you can also set your standards as far as there not being an ebb and flow. Like there doesn't have to be up and down, and you can be consistent. You can show up every day and make sure that you're also doing your self-care, and you're also practicing the things that you need to do to take care of yourself, because we can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
And addicts and alcoholics, like entrepreneurs, want to go from 0 to 100.
Well,
Um,
exactly.
so sometimes we got to throttle it back a little bit, make sure we're taking care of ourselves. So those are some big skills.
So I like that I heard you say that you work with companies and individuals with integrity. And I don't hear that often, and when someone explains or describes their business, because they're starting out and they're just like, well, I'll just get a client and do whatever. But it sounds like you're really looking at these individuals and people and making sure that what they're doing is really aligning with what they're telling you they're doing,
Absolutely.
so that it doesn't come back on you and your company.
Yeah. I don't want it on my conscience, honestly. I have turned people down nicely, of course, but
Well, of
just
course.
that it's not a good fit, because while the business model looks good, the person I definitely don't trust. They definitely felt shady, that gut feeling, we know. And yeah, I didn't even have any clients at the time, but I was like, I'm not willing to start it off like this.
Right. And I think, having come through pretty much any kind of trauma, when you have that gut feeling, that is, you need to respect that
Yeah,
and know that that's really what's protecting you right now. So,
absolutely.
I
It's a
think that
superpower.
it absolutely is. So, how do you balance going through building this business and helping other people and life?
Yeah, I'm a big scheduler. Um, so I schedule in my self-care, I schedule in showers, like
Oh, I love hearing that. I
I'm a
love hearing
list
that.
maker. And so I would say, some days are more, maybe the scales are tipped more in one direction necessarily than the other, as far as like if I'm working more on business or I'm working more on my recovery or whatever it is. But overall, like there's certain things that I practice every day. There's certain things that they're just non-negotiables for me. And so I build my life around them. And so I think that for me, it was really coming to terms with the fact that I am worth these non negotiables. I'm worth doing these things every day, taking care of myself, practicing gratitude, making sure I get enough sleep, making sure I get enough food, because otherwise I'm not performing at my best, and I'm putting
Right.
myself in danger. And so I think the biggest thing for me was realizing that like I am worth taking care of, and I owe it to myself, and it's safe to take care of myself so that I can show up for other people at my best.
Right. Well, and that's a good role model for the people that you ultimately want to help, because they'll see that you're able to do this. You're modeling the behavior. You're being that leader that they need.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. So do you have any success stories or moments of triumph along the ways in your journey?
I mean, there's so many. I think that I've definitely had some huge breakthroughs. I went to, I've been sober for 7.5 years now. And for a long time, I don't know if you talk a whole lot about like masculine and feminine energies, but I've been learning a lot about it.
Yep, I've talked a little bit about it. So, but
Okay.
I love hearing other people's opinions and viewpoints on it because they can be vastly different.
Vastly different. Um, so I've been learning a lot about it, and I've definitely been most of my life in a very masculine, like pushing forward, type A, like, you
Mhm.
know, not practicing creativity, not practicing nurturing myself, not, any of that, just like push, push, push.
As a trauma response, probably.
Yes, exactly. And so kind of learning more about the energies. I've been learning more about it, I would say, in the last like 9 months. I had gone to a personal development transformational event, and um, I was involved there with someone in the collective, and that's where I met them. And we were in an exercise together. Never
Okay.
met this person before, and we were talking about our trauma. And so I, was doing this because I needed to. I'm like, this is my moment to break through these things. I'm gonna do whatever the person tells me to do. So I'm doing it. And after that, after we did the exercise, they asked me to be a part of their mastermind group for their business. And you wouldn't think like, oh, that's sweet, that's nice, right? But for me, something switched where I realized like I can show up 100% me in my business. Like I don't have to keep it separate that like, oh, I'm vulnerable over here and oh, I've gone through things and oh, I'm a survivor of XYZ. And then over here I'm a business owner. Like they can be it's safe to be together. Like people will still respect me as a business owner even when I'm vulnerable. Maybe especially when I'm vulnerable.
Right. You don't have to have different masks. I know
Right.
I've had other people tell me, well, I'm this personality here, and I'm this personality here. And with my families, I'm this way, and my friends, I'm that way. And I'm like, how do you keep it straight?
Right.
You
It's a
gotta,
mess.
I'm like, wow, you gotta like remember who you're with and how you're supposed to act.
Right.
So,
It's
wow,
like a
that was
tangled mess in your brain.
exactly that sounds like a huge breakthrough.
It really was. It really was for me, and I don't even know that 100% realized it at the time. It was the weeks following after where I was like sat with it and I realized I was feeling different um about showing up 100% me, and I've definitely like I've gained a new confidence from that as far as even setting boundaries with clients um and just respecting myself and realizing like it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to set boundaries. It is okay, whatever it is.
Oh my gosh, that is great. Now, so you say you have non-negotiables in your self-care, and I'm not going to ask what those are, but were you using those non-negotiables to kind of look back at what happened at this seminar and realize that, hey, look at how far I've come
Yeah.
and go forward?
Absolutely. And just
Wow.
really recognizing how far I had come, because I feel like a lot of times we don't do that, at least for me personally. I get stuck in the day to day and oh my gosh, I didn't complete this or I didn't complete that. But to look back and realize like this is a journey and how far we've actually come and give ourselves some credit for that.
So that actually leads me into my next question. What words of encouragement would you give to somebody who may be going through, their journey and they're not quite to where you are? What would you tell them?
I would say give yourself grace. Take deep breaths. I know For me personally, I had to try multiple different types of therapy before I found something that felt right for me.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, and I just want to say that's okay. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. Everybody's brain is a little different.
Yeah,
Everybody's trauma is different. Practitioners are different. And so it's okay to try things out until you find something that you feel like is working.
good.
And it's also okay to move to something different when the thing that was working doesn't feel like it's working anymore.
And realize you're not a failure for that.
No,
That you can just keep trying things until it feels right. And when it does feel right,
you'll know.
you'll know.
Yeah. And it's absolutely okay. It is part of the process. And you deserve to find a treatment and a path that works for you.
That's that's amazing advice right there.
Thank you.
I hope everyone can take something away from that one. That was huge to hear from someone.
Thank you.
So, kind of finally, where how do you envision your entrepreneurial journey continuing to be influenced by your past experiences?
I think that as time goes by and I continue the journey, I think that it'll be impacted even more positively by everything that I've been through in the past and where I am today. I think that as I grow mentally, emotionally, spiritually, my business will grow as well and I'll be able to help even more people. And maybe some of the negative coping skills that I've had in the past will turn even more into positives. Um, and I think that I'm getting to know myself. And I think that that's a really beautiful gift. And I think that'll continue.
That is an amazing gift. Well, I have am so inspired by everything that you talked about today, and I really, really appreciate you coming on. And again, we hold space here at the collective for everybody, and I would love to talk to you again in the future and hear how much closer you are to this equine therapy ranch because I may want to come and play with the horses.
Absolutely.
I would love to learn a little bit more about that.
Yes. Thank you. This was awesome.
Awesome. So, thank you again for being here, and thank everybody for listening to our podcast in our Darkness to Radiance series. And I look forward to being here again with someone, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day. So, cheers, everybody.